Good people, what's going on? Episode 38, the Dome Podcast. Today we're going to talk about the legacy of Mobb Deep and did Mobb Deep reach their full potential? When it comes to groups, there are so many things come into play. You know, chemistry, of course. Uh, can they stay together? Does hard times break them apart? Do they take breaks where when they get back together, um, the energy is not right anymore, and they can't catch that energy again, or they just flamed out. Being in a group is hard. When you think about looking at the show on TV One back in the day, Unsung, you always saw how strong a group started, and then at some point, the lead singer ends up leaving. He feel like, hey, you can just throw some backup singers behind me. I still can rock the hits. And a lot of times that didn't happen. I mean, yeah, uh, Lionel Richie left the Commodores and, he became who he is now. The Commodores were large in the 70s, but, Lionel Richie became a super legend when he left. Of course, Michael Jackson, yeah, those were his brothers, but I mean, when he left, it was legendary, iconic career. You think about, uh, you know, some that didn't work, like JT when he left Cool in the Gang. He made a couple of joints, but it didn't really pop off. So I think Pat LaBelle was in the group, Shaka Khan was in the group. People do leave and go solo and they work. I'm saying? A lot of times it's hard to keep groups together. When you see like the Ronald Isley, the Isley Brothers and Earth, Wind and Fire and some of those groups, even Hall and Notes. I mean, I know Daryl Hall went off and did some joints, but Hall and Notes essentially stayed together. It's hard to stay together. We're talking about whether it's in R&B, country, rock, whatever. It's hard. Even jazz back in the day, it was hard to keep those bands together, man. And think about hip hop, only a few groups really sustained through an entire career together. Most broke up. I mean, EPMD got back together, but they broke up. Tribe Called Quest ended up getting back together, but at one point they broke up. De La Soul never broke up. From my knowledge, Public Enemy never broke up. Brand Nubians broke apart at one point. Pooh left. I don't think Souls of Mischief ever broke up. Outkast essentially never broke up. Andre just kind of disappeared and do what Andre do. He a different type of cat, but they didn't essentially break up. Little Brother right here in North Carolina, at one point they had broke apart and they got back together. I don't think Dawes Effects ever broke up. Dog Pound broke up at one point. They had issues. I don't know if A-Ball MJG ever broke up. They went off and did solo joints, but I don't think they ever broke up. I don't think UGK ever actually officially broke up. I think they, did solo joints too, but I think essentially they were together. And so today, talking about Mobb Deep, interesting story. And it's about their legacy, and did Mobb Deep ever truly break up, or did they reach their potential? Starting out as teenagers, man, Juvenile Hell, back in 93, something like that. They were young, they're trying to find their footing. Album had hit it from the back of Peer Pressure, something like that. Had a couple of joints on there, but obviously that wasn't the one that popped them off. Some of the group's first album was the album that really popped them off. Mobb Deep wasn't like that. Like when you think of certain groups, Public Enemy, Yo Bum Rush the Show, Tribe Called Quest, People Instinctive Travels, Outkast, Southern Player Listed, Black Moon, Into the Stage, Dog Food from Dog Pound. Like some of these groups, 93 to Infinity, Souls of Mischief, these guys, De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising. Some of these were their biggest or best albums, and not tribes, but I'm just saying some groups' big album or breakout album was their first album. For Mobb Deep, it wasn't like that. So 2 years later, they dropped the Infamous album. And this is when people heard Shook Ones too. And I said this on a podcast probably a year or two ago that the jump from Juvenile Hell to The Infamous, for me, is the biggest jump I might have ever seen in hip hop history with a group, and maybe even with a solo artist. You know what I'm saying? I don't remember seeing a jump like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, they talked about Q-Tip coming in, assisting, having some knowledge. You can hear them drums a lot different on the Infamous compared to Juvenile Hell. You know, you hear Drink Away the Pain, you hear them drums, then you hear a lot of other drums. Havoc was you know, his style. It sounded like Q-Tip really. I think he did kind of executive produce the album, but you hear the style change in the production. Nevertheless, Infamous drops New York banger, New York classic, East Coast classic. Shook Ones is probably one of the most known beats and uh, songs in general in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Uh, they go on tours at that point. Prodigy is looked at as one of New York's finest at the time, and Havoc is looked at as one of New York's finest producers and underrated lyricists. Fast forward, well, not really fast forward, 1 year later, they drop Hell on Earth. So now people looking at them like, okay, you know what? It wasn't just Infamous now. They didn't drop two banging albums back to back, two East Coast classics back to back. If you want to call them hip hop classics, that's we can debate that another time. I think the consensus is Infamous is a classic, but a lot of people think Hell on Earth is a classic. As I play it in the background right now, I actually listen to Hell on Earth more now in 2023 than I do the Infamous. Not saying which one is better because both of them are just amazing to me. But this is now when people start looking at Prodigy. It's like, okay, Prodigy is up there, and people are comparing him at the time to Nas, Big. You know, Jay was still kind of on the rise, but a lot of the big time rappers from New York, Prodigy's right there. Redman, you know, some of these guys, Prodigy was right there in the mix. You know what I'm saying? He had already killed it on the Infamous, killed it on Hell on Earth. You know, they was bombing on Tupac. Really, I think they was bombing on Tupac throughout Hell on Earth. Obviously, Drop a Gem is probably a top 10 hip hop diss song, and people say, well, they didn't name Pop. Well, they said everything but his name in the song. I mean, everybody knew Drop a Gem was a Tupac diss. And I actually think throughout the album, they threw some shots at Pac here and there. And all this was done, obviously, when Pac was still alive, but, you know, when he passed away, you know, they ain't pushed those songs and pushed more disses because they had other diss songs that was unreleased at Pac. Some of the stuff ended up linking on YouTube or whatever. You can put some of them in. They actually did over one of Pac beats. But nevertheless, you have Hell on Earth, another banger. You know what I'm saying? Then you get Murder Music is coming. So now you're talking about 3 albums back to back, 95, 96, and 99. It took a little hiatus. 1999, Quiet Storm comes. Now, Quiet Storm is one of those rare cases in hip hop history where a street banger becomes a club banger. You can still play it on the radio, but you'll hear dudes on the block playing it. When Lil Kim ended up being on the with the remix version, now you got the females in the club singing her verse, doing her verse. Now you have a classic song that's still played over 20 years later in different hip hop joints, different clubs, different events. Quiet Storm is probably was more of a club banger than the Shook Ones. I mean, Shook Ones do play in some hip hop spots, but the Quiet Storm is a club banger. So, but still hardcore. And I think Havoc said that was one of the last songs, if not the last song that they even did for the go ahead and put on Hell on Earth, because I think it was a Prodigy song that was going to go on the HNIC album. Prodigy's solo album ended up coming out a year later. You know what I'm saying? But now you have Juvenile Hell, the Infamous, Hell on Earth, Murder Music. I mean, they're doing some big things at this point. And I want to say Murder Music leaked, so they had to go back and add some more songs and stuff like that, man. But you know, Murder Music had Core Mega, 8 Ball, 8 Ball MJG. I think it was 8 Ball on there. And Nas again, you know, Nas was also on. Nas was on the Infamous. Nas was on the first, well, not Juvenile Hell, but he was on Infamous, Hell on Earth, and Murder Music. You know what I'm saying? So you had the dope guest appearances, dope production once again. I want to say the Alchemist did maybe a few songs on there. I think that Realist with Cool G Rap. I think the Alchemist did that beat. You know what I'm saying? But now you're looking at Mobb Deep. People are now comparing Mobb Deep to the great groups of New York, like your EPMDs, and for me personally, S Clan was a dope group. Of course, Brand Nubians, East Coast again. I know this is not New York. I think it's Jersey, Poor Righteous Teachers, and Not About Nature, and all the other East Coast groups. I mean, now Mobb Deep is starting to be considered one of the top ones. Some people thought they were right there under your tribes and EPMDs and all that. You know what I'm saying? So they on fire. Three amazing albums back to back. Exclude the Juvenile Hell. Now I think they started doing other label stuff, and I think Prodigy ended up doing his. Somebody can fact check me with HNIC 1 year after Murder Music on like I think it was on a smaller label, independent label maybe, but nevertheless that was a banger also. Then they ended up at some point with 50 Cent, but then they had the Infamy doing that Jay-Z battle. Infamy with Burn and all of that on that. I thought Infamy was a dope album. You know what I'm saying? I think that Havoc at that time ended up being the lead lyricist on Infamy because I just felt like Prodigy kind of got sidetracked a little bit, being so upset with Jay-Z from Summer Jam and all that stuff. So he kind of lost some focus. You know what I'm saying? So Havoc kind of carried the Infamy album. Noah was on there. Shout out to Noah. I might have told the story before, but when I was at UNCG and T back in the 90s, one of my cousins knew Big Noah and Mobb Deep, and a lot of guys used to come down to North Carolina, hang out and do whatever they was doing. So Noah actually hung out with me and my man for like the weekend, wilding out on campus, just chilling, drinking, doing whatever. It was cool, man. Not mistaken, Noah actually had a tape with shootouts on it. It was written, hadn't dropped yet. It was going to drop in a couple of weeks. But Noah, I want to say, had the tape with shootouts on it on the other side. I don't know if it was a setup. I'm not sure what the other song was, but I remember him being so proud of Nas at the time. But anyway, he was on the Infamy also. Infamy album was dope. So for me, they 4 out of 5 right now with dope albums. I think Infamy get a bad rap, but it's a very good album. Then at some point, have some look here, American Nightmare, Blood Money, Infamous Mobb Deep 2014. They had some compilation albums and mixtapes and stuff like that. But I guess the question would be, did Mobb Deep reach their full potential, or could something else have been added to their legacy? So for me, I feel like Mobb Deep probably did everything they needed to do as a group. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about 8 albums, 8 albums. It's a lot for a group. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to keep a group together for more than 2 or 3 albums, especially after seeing some success. But when I think about if you got 8 albums, 3 of the albums are for many either classic or close to a classic. One very solid and some good ones. I thought Blood Money had some good songs on. America's Nightmare in 2004 was a good album. You know what I'm saying? So when you look at that discography for Mobb Deep, what was it really missing? Infamous, Hell on Earth, Murder Music can go against most groups' 3 best albums in hip hop. Like if you think about all of the best groups in hip hop history, most of them got 2 or 3 amazing albums and then some other albums that was good, solid, whatever. You got Tribe, got the People Stick to Travels, The Low End Theory, and Midnight Marauders. Okay, so Mobb Deep can go up against Tribe. I think Tribe gets them a little bit, but Mobb Deep is in there. Outkast, Simplistic, ATLiens, Quemini. We've discussed that on Facebook before. Some people say, Mobb Deep is right there with them. Now, if you like a certain sound, if you like a certain East Coast boom bap sound, then you'll pick Mobb Deep over a lot of these groups. You know what I'm saying? Some people, the masses might pick Outkast though. You know what I'm saying? But Mobb Deep is right there in contention. Public Enemy, they got several good albums. I don't really consider Eric B and Rakim and then BDP because Rakim the only real rapper and Eric B and Rakim, obviously. Same with Gangstar. It's Guru and Premier, a DJ and an MC. Well, producing MC. He's not really a group to me. P Rock CL Smooth, that CL Smooth did most of the rapping. But if you want to consider that, they still don't have 3 albums better than Mobb Deep's. You can argue the Main Ingredient is one of the best produced albums ever, and but they don't have three anyway, because I think one of the albums is like an EP with the Creator on it, I believe. Who else? Brand Nubans had One for All. They didn't have In God We Trust. Everything is Everything. I think Mobb Deep gets them. De La Soul is something different now. You got 3 Feet High and Rising. You got De La Soul is Dead. You got Balloon Mind State. You got Stakes is High. Those four. You can take Mobb Deep for at Infamy, and they can compete with De La Soul. Other groups, man, like Able MJG had dope albums. UGK had dope albums. You know what I'm saying? Ghetto Boys had dope albums. Uh, Black Moon was dope. Souls of Mischief, The Far Side was dope. But Mobb Deep, their 3 album run is better than most. EPMD had a 4 album run that's just legendary. Run DMC had, Run DMC self-titled. What was that? King of Rock, Raising Hell. But Mobb Deep, like I said, there you could consider looking at it now. Mobb Deep might be a top 10 group of all time in hip hop history. You know what I'm saying? I think that they are probably a top 10 group. I think if you look at that in that range, I think they did meet their potential. They reached their potential. And so now we're talking about 8 albums, 3 being amazing, Infamy being really good, American Nightmare is really good. Some people like Blood Money, you know what I'm saying? Now, the Mobb Deep tree, Havoc's production. If you add on the total of Mobb Deep, you got Havoc's production on these albums are amazing. You know what I'm saying? His back-to-back work on Infamous and Hell on Earth is some of the best from one producer that you're gonna see. I mean that his work up there is up there with RZA work ethic and Primo and all. I mean he got the heat like them. You know what I'm saying? You listen to them albums and other albums. So then they end up producing outside of Mobb Deep a lot of joints for CNN, joints for other people in New York. He produced on Biggie Life After Death. He produced on Curtis, 50 Cent album. You know what I'm saying? So Havoc did, like, was it Wild with Jada? Because I think, so he did all of this stuff as a producer. Prodigy goes out and does the HNIC album. And that's really how the response back to he was going back and forth with Jay-Z, just subliminals or what have you. I still think that the song, that Mega song, Thunder and King Kong was against Jay-Z and Nas. I swear I think it is. But HNIC, a dope album. I say that HNIC is Prodigy's Me Against the World. I said this recently. HNIC is Prodigy's his life story. It starts with a joint Genesis and it ends with the song You Can Never Feel My Pain, when you talk about the sickle cell and the challenges of living with sickle cell. But throughout that album, it sounds like a story of his life, like Pocket Me Against the World. Very deep joints on there, hard joints on there. Of course, Keep It Thorough is a joint that just is the street banger from that album. Dope guest appearance on there. Big Noah killed it. BG from Cash Money on Young Black Entrepreneurs. I said Mega, a couple other people on there, really dope. He turns around and has other projects. The joint with Alchemist, Return of the Mac. Return of the Mac was very good. And then he had that joint, the Albert Alstasia, some kind of joint, Albert, something I think. So they had several more albums. He had HNIC 2. You know what I'm saying? One of my favorite Mobb Deep songs, a Prodigy solo song, is a joint called Veterans Memorial. You know what I'm saying? Like, very deep, man. Just talking about losing people in his life and, and stuff like that. Very deep song, man. So when you look at the solo albums from Prodigy, the production from Havoc, the albums of Mobb Deep together, to get 8 albums out of a group, a duo. If you think about other duos in just hip hop right now, duos, did they get 8 albums? I mean, Pete Rock did rap songs, so let's say Pete Rock and CL Smooth. You didn't get 8 albums from them. That was done after 2. You know what I'm saying? Was it Mecca and the Soul Brother, the Main Ingredient? That was it. Then and the EP they had to start their career off. What other duos? Nas Effect's a duo. I mean, a group. But I'm just saying they gave you what 3 or 4 albums. You know what I'm saying? Who else? Some other duos, man. I mean, some of them just different situations happen. UGK duo, MDG. I mean, some of them had 7, 8, 9, 10 albums, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, Mobb Deep lasted 8 albums, and so if you know more a duo with more than 8 albums, man, let me know. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure if I look it up, there might be a few with some, but I mean that's a lot. 8 albums is a lot. Um, Over time span of 1993 to 2014. Now we know that P and Habit did have some problems, like any other groups. And I think, unfortunately, at one point, Havoc, I don't know if he was drunk. I'm assuming he was drunk. He went on the internet and was really saying a lot of stuff about Prodigy, man. It was just a bad look. And when he ended up going on the Breakfast Club, Charlamagne was talking to him about it, man, about it. And he kind of was admitting and kind of denying it all at the same time. Just was a bad look. But I'm glad they were able to mend their relationship and actually go back on tour. I mean, Prodigy passed away at a hospital after being on tour and then being in Vegas. You know what I'm saying? Him kind of getting sick or whatever, and that's when that's when he passed away. Rest in peace of Prodigy, man. Back a couple of years ago when it happened, I wrote one of my favorite articles on IntoTheDome.com. It was called "Prodigy: The Voice of New York," and Prodigy was like the poster boy of New York hip hop. His whole swag, his voice, the production he rapped over. He was so New York, man. So I wrote that dedication article, man. Prodigy, the voice of New York, man. Y'all check that out if you haven't read that. Check it out on IntoTheDome.com. You know what I'm saying? In terms of Mobb Deep singles, big singles, hardcore album cuts, they even did a song on the Hoodlum soundtrack with Rakim on it that was dope. They did the song The Realest with Cool G Rap. You know what I'm saying? They did several songs with Nas. You know what I'm saying? They done songs with 50 Cent. I mean, they branched out some. You know what I'm saying? Like I said earlier, Havoc did Why for Jada Kiss. You know what I'm saying? He produced on Ready to Die. I mean, not Ready to Die, excuse me, Life After Death. So, I mean, their market in hip hop is solidified. I don't think they left really anything else on the table. You could say, like, okay, after that tour they did before Pete passed, could they have done another album? Maybe they could have done another album, but at the same time, what was it going to be like at that point in their careers? We talking about them starting in 1993 as kids, and they were still touring and making music, 20 years later, basically. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, almost 20. So I don't think it was even necessary at that point. I think they reached their pinnacle with Infamous, Hell on Earth, and Murder Music. Those 3 albums back to back. You add in Infamy, that's 4 dope albums. You add in America's Nightmare, maybe that's 5. You know what I'm saying? Then the solo joints. I think they left nothing else to be desired. I think that they probably have, and this is what Havoc would need to do. I bet you they have more unreleased music. So I think they had those mixtapes. I'm saying back from hiatus. Free Agents was in 2003, and they had several other. They had that Black Cocaine, 2011. That was very dope. You know what I'm saying? So that's a lot of music, a lot of projects. I think they got to a point where they didn't have to do any more new music, and they could just tour. For the years to come. Unfortunately, it didn't get a chance to happen. I do think that Habit toured some with Nord and with some other people from other people he was touring with. You know what I'm saying? And then I think Havoc ended up doing an album with Styles P and some other people. So I don't think nothing else was necessary for Mobb Deep, man. I think they reached their pinnacle. I believe they're a top 10 group in hip hop history, and I think they're pushing a top 5 group in New York. You know what I'm saying? What you guys think? Short episode tonight. Have a good one. Have fun, man. Peace.